Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome on back to another episode of the Speak the Truth podcast. I'm your host, Matt Tardio. Unsubscribed podcast ended up dropping some more information, and wouldn't you know it, it looks like Detective High, aka Angry Cops, actually brought his receipts with him this time. And we're going to go over what those receipts are. I'm not even going to string this thing out for you. I'm not even going to do that. And I know a lot of you guys are probably wondering, Matt, listen, you guys report on wars. Why are you going over this Angry Cops business and what the Unsubscribed podcast is getting themselves into? And I'll tell you why. Because it's about child sexual assaults, child sex crimes. That is an issue if it's being covered up. And it definitely looks like it is. It definitely looks like it is. And I'll tell you the other reason why I'm doing it, because he's still an active law enforcement officer currently as we speak. And he ended up risking his dang career to come out here and bring that out for everybody. You don't take my word for it. This is why. Listen. He doesn't get to tell you all of the facts.
There is information. Because let me tell you, the hardest part for me, like as an individual, like if I'm being selfish, right? The hardest part for me so far is knowing the information that I've investigated on these cases, but not being able to share it with the news or you guys because it's part of an investigation that's ongoing, or it's something that I know because of my job, and I can't give away too much information because otherwise I could be held accountable for violating the media policies of my department.
That, ladies and gentlemen, is why we are covering this and why we are having his back on this situation, because he knows stuff that he can't tell us. That's why. He's an active law enforcement officer. He can't release information on active investigations. And my personal opinion is I feel like some of this is actually being covered up. I feel like it potentially is being covered up by the DA's office and or the AG's office. And when he ends up calling, let's just get into what the new facts are. Because after he releases these facts, he ends up coming out and saying, you know what? I actually think that this needs to be investigated by a higher office. And I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think it needs to be investigated by a higher office over inside of New York. No. I think the FBI needs to get involved. And I'm going to explain why here in just a sec. First, let's listen to the new facts that actually back up what he brought up last time, which was all of this crap is being covered up by the Buffalo school system.
So, Nick, speaking of people emailing us and telling us, new and intriguing information that could be brought to light to show a history of, not working with police very well or intentionally mislabeling or even failing to report, I received an email from an individual at a school. And this individual said, hey, Rich, you came to my school last year and you were investigating a school assault on one of our students. This person didn't say exactly who told them that that they were not allowed to talk to me. But this person also had a statement from the student, not the student that was assaulted, but the student's friend that was one of the people that she confided in. I forget the actual term that we use for it in policing, but whenever somebody confides their sexual assault to a friend, it's like their first utterance of it.
Yeah, when I was in law enforcement, it was a cry out witness. Your cry out witness, the first person that you go to when something like this happens, and it's true not just in sexual assaults, but also in domestic violence cases, cry out witnesses.
Happening, that's a big deal. We notate the date and time and what that person was told by that individual, and it grants credence and validates the victim's story, right? Instead of just a he said, she said, there's other people involved, which is what we want. More eyes, more statements, more voices to solidify exactly what happened. So I'm going to read what this child wrote in a statement, and then I'll go over why it's a big deal.
Just to be clear, before you read the statement, just so I understand exactly what's happening, you investigated this, you solved the case, you closed the case.
Yes.
And this individual at the school, either a teacher, a counselor, whoever, was given this written information by the student and then was told she was not allowed to give it to you, the detective that was actively investigating this assault.
That's correct.
What the
So
fuck?
this is new evidence.
Jesus.
This is new evidence brought in after the fact because the administration withheld evidence intentionally in a sexual assault case.
That's correct.
So this would be failure to report and obstruction of justice?
I mean, I would say so.
Okay. I just want to make sure we're all on the same
Or
page.
witness tampering. I mean, I don't know if you really do witness tampering. That's kind of a stretch, but basically evidence was available. This person wanted to share it with me, and then they were told not to share it with me and not to even talk to me.
It's fucking wild.
And get ready for this. All right, so I'm going to read it now. If you could please bleep out, I'm not even going to say the names, but please black out the names of those that are suspects, because the names mentioned in here could come up as a part of a new investigation for failure to report. So we're going to leave the names of the suspects out. I'm just going to say like teacher A or just the teacher, whatever. On Tuesday, October 22nd, I told Miss Blank that the victim got raped in the auditorium. She said, I'm not the right person to tell, and she took me to Miss Blank in the office. I told Miss Blank, today, the victim came late to a different teacher's class because she got raped in the auditorium. Miss Blank asked, is there any proof? Which is not what you ask a child when they're reporting this. The victim's friend stated, yes, there is a video. Miss Blank asked, who was the boy? I said suspect, and she said, okay. She said she would handle it tomorrow. I thought she was going to do something or pull us in the morning and talk about it. But then the half of the 7th grade knew, so we told Miss Blank because nothing was done. Miss Blank was in shock and said, give me 5 minutes. We walked away from Miss Blank and the victim started crying. So we went to go look for Miss Blank. Signed, the victim's friend who made this statement 2 days after. So in case you're not picking up what I'm putting down here.
I'll take it from here, brother. Thank you. Yeah. So what ended up happening is these teachers end up blowing off this statement from the victim's cry out witness and didn't report it. They said that they were going to do it the next day, which is wrong. They said they took them to somebody else, which is also maybe okay if you're going to actually handle it. And then the whole thing just gets freaking buried and it doesn't come to light. And now he's able to talk about it because the investigation's closed. It turns out that there was no sexual assault that ended up taking place. But either way, they didn't know that at the time, so they should have reported it. So that's failure to report. And why he was not given this information, for the love of God, is beyond me. So that teacher, in Matt's opinion, needs to get charged. All of them that were complicit in that. It's garbage. It is not the teacher's job to investigate the crimes. It's quite literally this man's job. Wow. And again, there's more cases that he's currently looking into that he's not allowed to talk about. Now, they did a really good job in the media slandering Rich, i.e. Detective High, i.e. angry cops, when all of this first came out last week. Ended up talking about his corruption and what a bad human being he is. Well, thank God the fat electrician exists because he also went over it. And don't worry, I'm about to go over the corruption at the damn DA's office. Excuse me, AG's office. And why I think that the DA might be involved. Now, our fat buddy that likes electricity, he happened to dig a little bit deeper with some Freedom of Information Act requests within the Buffalo PD and went into specifically how many calls and everything else ended up happening at Buffalo public school systems. And in addition to all of that, he went over all of the wrongdoings that the Buffalo public schools has been accused of over the last freaking 40 years. And he had some shocking ones. Let's just listen into a couple of them. Before we just start casting stones at Detective High, first let's listen to how jacked up the freaking public school system is there in Buffalo.
We're going to skip past that. We'll get right into 2019. There was a high school technology teacher caught with illicit child material all over his computer. He is now in federal prison. In 2019, again, another English teacher from the area was caught and convicted for growing marijuana, trafficking marijuana, having possession of illegal firearms, and distributing to minors.
That's nice.
Wow.
2019, so that was great. 2022, we've got Gregory Johnson, position principal, accused of ongoing physical and abuse of a student during the school year and field trips. The outcome, there has been no criminal charges filed as of 2025, but there is a civil suit that is filed.
Maybe they didn't have the
2022,
evidence.
failure to report abuse of a high school counselor.
Dude, and you hear him just rambling those things off, and he goes on and on and on about this entire list. So Buffalo Public Schools, you guys are guilty as hell. Like you have some of the most crooked freaking teachers and principals that I've ever heard of. And that within itself should have been the main focus by mainstream media, but mainstream media chose not to cover it. And that is why they're coming to people like us and everybody else on this particular subject. Because they don't trust mainstream media. And they don't trust the Buffalo public school system. You know why they don't trust the Buffalo public school system? Because they had a closed door meeting when normally everything is public. But after the Unsub podcast came out with their rendition of events, Buffalo Public Schools held a meeting and ended up having a closed door session. They had a ton of security guards on freaking standby. Let me tell you something. I know me, after looking into all of this, I have some serious problems with the Attorney General's office. And Rich, in this video, ended up calling for somebody a little bit higher up to take a look into all of this.
If you want to see an investigation that is beyond the Buffalo Police Department, which at this point I believe it should be, right? There's so many moving pieces that the district attorney's office is involved because the schools are ignoring subpoenas by them. They're not assisting and they're obstructing investigations by the Buffalo Police Department, and they're also not reporting them, right? When you have the district attorney's office, the Buffalo Police Department, you know, and you could even go with like New York State Bar, like where, because lawyers aren't responding to subpoenas, you know, there's the U.S. Board of Education. When you have all these things together, you can't have all these individual investigations going on and not talk to one another. So in a perfect world, somebody a step above the district attorney's office and the Buffalo Police Department would be investigating this, whether it be the AG's office, the U.S. attorneys, the FBI.
Yeah, he's right. In a perfect world, you would want somebody a step above to take a look in all of this, which would be the AG's office. But I'm telling you right now, I don't trust the AG's office because who's at the head of it? Oh, it's right, Letitia James. And there's a big conflict of interest here because this man that's calling them out happened to get slandered by Letitia, in Matt's opinion, and unjustifiably. You know what's funny is if you go over to her website where Rich's findings might possibly be found, this is what you end up getting now. Unfortunately for the AG, I happen to have this right here. And it's downloaded on top of that. So I've got a copy of it should they watch this and choose to rip it down. And this goes over everything. And one of the key things that ends up going over, one of the misconducts of Detective High that she labels inside of this report, demanding some administrative action be taken against him, is this incident that I'm about to show you. I went back, I grabbed the body cam footage, and it involves a state judge. Now, if you want this video for yourself and to spread awareness, I'll go ahead and I'll link it down in the description below because I posted it up over to my X account. Let's go ahead and take a look here. The original call was a neighborhood dispute, just to give you some background, or a neighbor dispute, where the neighbor alleged, or excuse me, this judge alleged that the neighbor blocked his driveway, and so he ended up calling it in. And then this judge ends up assaulting a peace officer because his wife was getting detained because she was getting out of control and lippy and she was interfering with the investigations. And so the judge thought it was up to him to run over and frickin' shove this police officer. And right here at this portion of the body cam video, you actually see this judge admit to it. And I'm telling you right now, in this clip as well, you're going to hear the response from the DA's office why they chose not to press charges against this particular judge. And you watch this video and you tell me if this DA's office is being responsible. Or maybe if you think there might be some corruption at the DA's office.
I'm sure you understand I'm getting...
Get around the car and I'll bring her aside. And I didn't mean to tackle you, but I mean, you kind of threw my wife down on the ground pretty hard, and I don't appreciate that.
I understand that.
All right? I really...
You see that right there? That's where he assaulted a peace officer. He ran over and shoved him as his wife was getting detained because she's being freaking belligerent. And here you have this judge. Just listen. You tell me if you don't think this judge is being belligerent towards the police. And right up over here in the left corner, right here, leaning on the screen that just walked up to the scene, happens to be the current detective in question, Detective High.
Really don't. If I would do that to your wife and you're outside, you do the same thing.
Sure, if you were a police officer and she was screaming
No,
in my
my
face.
daughter's a police officer, and I know what you guys are going through right now. And trust me, my daughter's a police officer, my son-in-law's a police officer, my
Okay, and if someone was screaming at your daughter and approaching her like that, she would have done the same thing.
No, you grabbed my wife from over there and dragged her over here, which is not necessary. Okay. So you need to chill out about that.
I have a camera, so it's all documented.
I don't care about your camera. Just give you a little constructive criticism, dude.
Okay.
Okay?
Let me give you some constructive criticism. You want to drop another copper's name? You want to scream about Molly or the mayor? Why don't you shut the f*** up? And you keep quiet. Shut your goddamn mouth. Put your hands right back. Listen. Put your hands right back. You want to be difficult? You want to say coppers? I know all these things. No, I want to make this look dirty. Is that what you want to do? So how am I helping you now? Tell me, how can I help you? Shut up and let me talk to you old geezer. Shut up. Shut up and let me talk to you. Since you had so much to say and you touch a cop. So let me talk to you. Guy. Let me talk to you. Guy. Quiet. No, you're not done talking yet. And I'm not done talking to you. So let's be quiet, Dad, so son can get some words in. You're saying everybody's and dropping everybody's name with a badge. And you're expecting special treatment. How does that look like to everybody in this environment right now? It doesn't look good.
I know.
And then you
You're right.
grab him.
What do you want me to do?
What do you want me to do? Why are you still over talking?
You're 100% right.
We're going back over to my car.
No, I'm just saying you're 100% right.
We're going over here. You smell like shit.
You smell like Now, what you just witnessed was a man admit that he assaulted a police officer, then tried to chew the police officer out. Then Detective High listens to the man continuing to be belligerent towards another officer, likely junior to him. And so he puts the judge in cuffs and throws him in the back of his car after chewing his butt. Let me describe to you escalation of force as it pertains to law enforcement. Officer presence, then verbal. You attempt to gain verbal compliance. The officer being there in uniform, number one, was step number one. Number two, Detective High, because the judge, who he didn't know that at the time, is running his mouth after assaulting a freaking police officer, then tries to get verbal compliance, which he can't get, so he throws the man in cuffs, and justifiably so. And it's not a perfect world, as the AG's office apparently likes it to be. Yeah, he cussed at a man that had struck a law enforcement officer. And let's see in the AG's freaking investigation into Detective High how she decided to label that interaction and that particular call. Do you think she labeled it as an assault on a peace officer? Do you think that's how she labeled it? Let's check. No, it doesn't appear to be that way. Let's just zoom in right here. A neighborhood dispute. And then you go down to the bottom again, and she loses it. Misconduct because he was being discourteous, violating their policy. He was being discourteous. Now, do you think he's actually being discourteous to a man that just assaulted a police officer and decided to sit there and try to freaking lecture a police officer? Is that being discourteous? I don't believe it is. I believe that's attempting to gain control. Now, he cursed and yelled at him in an unprofessional manner, which I would agree if he just did off on a random human being. But as he's doing his job and attempting to gain control of the scene, which this freaking judge thought he was in control of, no, I don't believe it is. But as you can see here, she says, we find that Detective High was discourteous and violated the policy, specifically Chapter 1, Section 2.13 of the Rules and Regulation, where he cursed and yelled at an individual in an unprofessional manner. No, ma'am, I don't think it is. I think it's attempting to gain control of a scene and talking to people on their level, which maybe for you sitting up in your freaking high and mighty office, you don't have to do, but law enforcement officers have to do it. So I think that Detective High is right when he states that we need somebody else to look into this, because the AG's office has already looked into Detective High, the guy that's trying to bring attention to it and doing it the right way, and he can't talk and he can't release information. So who would you like to look into this? Because the DA's office, allegedly after submitting their subpoenas, has been pretty damn inactive on the Buffalo public school system. The Buffalo public school system is now holding private meetings. The AG's office, it would appear, is just trying to hide these freaking reports. So who do you turn to? Me personally, I think this is kind of where you go ahead and you get the FBI involved. Because it would appear that there's corruption going on in Matt's opinion. And I have to use the words "it would appear," and I have to use all of these different phrases because they're probably going to try to come after me for pointing out the obvious that maybe they're trying to hide stuff. Let's see what the DA's office did about that investigation, where the law enforcement officer was assaulted by a flippin' judge.
Grisanti appointed to the bench by Governor Cuomo. Now, Grisanti shoved a city officer after police responded to a fight involving the judge, his wife, and a few neighbors.
DA John Flynn says the behavior of everyone involved was childish, but not criminal.
This was, quite frankly, nothing more than 4 50-year-olds and 60-year-olds acting like children.
That's the Erie County District Attorney's assessment.
For 50-year-olds and 60-year-olds that were acting like children. No, that was a freaking judge that assaulted a law enforcement officer. And you dropped the charges on them because they were acting like children. I would agree with your assessment that they were all acting like children. But then they took it a step further, and that particular judge assaulted a law enforcement officer. And you dropped the charges. You didn't charge the judge for assaulting a police officer. Do I count on the DA's office now? No, I don't. Do I count on the AG's office after their review of it? No, I don't. You know what's really interesting about this whole thing? That judge happened to say he knew somebody and dropped a name. Do you know what that name was that he dropped? Commissioner Gramaglia. Now, I don't believe Gramaglia was the commissioner at the time, but it would appear he sure is now. So who do you go to deal with this corruption? Well, in Matt's opinion, you go to the FBI. And there might be a link in the description down below if you would agree with me on that subject and maybe want to see some action taken on this case. Just throwing it out there. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Speak the Truth podcast. I'm your host, Matt Tardio. In the meantime, peace, love, happiness, and God bless. I'm out of here.